Thanks so much, Ron. I really appreciate it. Just checking I'm unmuted. All good. All right. So I'm going to launch in. I'm very excited to share a little bit with you about how Trellix is enhancing threat detections with AI and helping you secure your organization. Ron, you touched on this, but for any of you who are not familiar with Trellix as a company, you may be more familiar with McAfee or FireEye in the in early 2022, we joined forces to make this new enterprise Trellix, but really we're combining the legacy of our depth of experience coming from both sides of things. And there's a lot on this slide. What I want to highlight, is in 2023 we launched our AI community, but really our work with AI goes back. We have a much richer history, right? So as soon as these tools became available, we started to leverage analytics and machine learning and building out guided investigations, essentially enhancing the analyst experience in the tool. And I think that's really important as folks shift really quickly to adopting AI. It's obviously a buzzword and also a tool that we're leveraging more and more on a daily basis, but we have been doing it for a long time. I think it's also important. I want to just touch on the state of the industry. Tom shared some really interesting information, echoing our own experiences with ransomware, so I don't need to spend a lot of time there. This data was compiled by our Advanced Research Center, and I do want to kind of give them a shout out. That's our intelligence arm. So as a large corporation, again, bringing in the experience from the two source companies, we not only have security products, but we have in-house researchers that are helping us do research and track the latest threat trends so that we're responding to them appropriately. A couple other themes I want to call out that we're seeing, the level of nation state activity. In our detections, we're seeing nearly 70% of them linked to China generated threats. And that's really important because it speaks to the level of sophistication that we're dealing with, right? This is not some kid in his basement that's bored and is like, seeing what they can do. And that becomes a challenge for us to respond to them. We've already talked in this session about ransomware. I won't spend more time on that. And then there are some unique challenges that we have in healthcare, both with some of the devices, the medical devices that we're using that go beyond traditional IT. That just expands the threat surface. And so we have vulnerabilities that we can track specific to things like patient monitors and other tech that's medical specific. And then in the same vein, let's say, poor security practices or practices that began when security was not as top of mind as it is. So we've even seen recently in supply dispensers and anesthesia stations having embedded hard-coded credentials, which again are a security risk because that becomes an attack surface. So all of this is to kind of echo the challenges I'm sure you are all seeing. But I don't want to just sit with those challenges, but I want to propose solutions, right? So we at Trellix have been working very closely with AWS, with all of the cloud providers, really, but in particular with AWS in terms of hosting some of the tools that we have in the cloud. So we have joined forces to both expand the security capabilities within the cloud. You can adopt some of the Trellix tools like our network detection, endpoint detection, and host those in your cloud environments. And then we have tools and have integrations to enhance your cloud environments, enhance detection within the cloud. And I will touch a little bit on our Helix Connect tool. I know Arun is going to come up later and talk more about these Amazon offerings. So what I want to highlight here is that Amazon Bedrock is really the foundation of our generative AI tools that we're using in our platforms to enhance detection and give that all important analyst assist. I do want to highlight that this partnership with AWS has that official seal of approval, right? We are an AWS partner with security competency status. We have some additional competencies that you can see here on the slide in terms of marketplace and public sector, which is just all to say, we're really committed to working with Amazon and securing the cloud. So as you can imagine, being, Trellix coming from that legacy of McAfee and FireEye, we have a breadth of experience and detection across the entire ecosystem. So we have products for endpoint, for network, for data, for email specifically, now in the cloud. And we're also really committed to having open and native third-party integration. So if you're looking to enhance your endpoint detection, you're not happy with what you have, we know we're not going to come in and say, okay, you're going to rip out everything, right? But if you then want to look and do a proof of concept on our endpoint tool and understand what it does for you, we can integrate that with your other third-party tools, even for the Trellix standpoint. And so you're not having to rip and replace anything. You're really just bringing in Trellix to augment what you have. I do want to highlight the number of integrations that we have for our platform here. So this number, marketing keeps me on my toes. This 490 is growing every time I run this. This is probably really focused on cloud integrations. We also do integrations with on-prem devices. Another big point that I'm very proud of is the number of Fortune 100 companies that work with Trellix tools, really kind of, I think, showing the gold status of what we can do in terms of detection and who's using the tools. And then I did touch earlier on the Advanced Research Center. That's where that data on the state of the industry came from. And I think it's really important to highlight that, again, we're not just doing detection, but we've got the detection across the full ecosystem, network, endpoint, email, cloud, and then we have the analyst capabilities and expertise to back up what we're doing. So you can see some of the awards here that we're really proud of, and hopefully that's enough to start to convince you. But it's not enough for me to say Trellix is great, so and so thinks it's great. I really want to tell you kind of how we're doing what we're doing and how we're using AI to support security operations, so for our customers. And because our portfolio is so broad, I'm not going to be able to touch on everything we do. I'm going to focus on data security. That's obviously a huge challenge within the healthcare industry to secure not only your patient data, but PII within your organization. Earlier, Austin touched on the challenges of wanting AI and knowing it's going to benefit your own environment, but not being able to deal with the challenge of the overhead. And in fact, we see organizations, start to go down the line of implementation, and they start to work out a proof of concept, and all seems great. They start to move it into production, and then all of a sudden the brakes get put on because of concerns around data safety, right? So you have to really understand what the tools are doing, where the data is getting used. And so that can be an impediment to deploying AI. When we look at the Trellix tools that employ artificial intelligence already, you're getting a well-vetted tool that you can adopt with confidence to leverage AI for your existing security operations. So as an example here, I'm going to talk through a kind of a use case with data security. We thinking about data in our databases, the sensitive information. We want to make sure that we have it protected, that we're compliant, and that we're protected as a company with our security here. So in a minute, I'm going to talk through that use case with data security, but just to give a little bit of background on how we're using AI, Mauricio posted in the chat about human oversight, right? That's a challenge, a concern for all of us. And our view at Trellix is that AI is always going to be doing work to support the human, right? So we're going to have that analyst assist, but we're never going to take that human out of the picture. We're just going to make it more possible for them to do their job. So an ongoing challenge, we had those challenges earlier in the slide deck. The volumes of data, that's often one that we talk about as well. I'm sure you're all experienced with this, that alert fatigue, or you open up your screen and you've got thousands of alerts, you don't know where to start. And we have traditional tools like Severity that can help you start to triage, but that never really tells the full story. And so we have our data sources sending data to our data lake, but how do we use that efficiently? That's really where these machine learning models can come in. Trellix has trained machine learning to understand general security concepts, like what is an MD5, what is the value of it, how do I recognize base 64 encoding? These are things that as an analyst, an experienced analyst, you might not even know you're doing. You do it so automatically, but we do need to train the systems. And we're training it on general concepts. We're not training it on your data. There's no potential for data leakage in this. You're getting the product pre-trained with those machine models. We have our anomaly detection, which again comes out of machine learning, as well as some kind of rules and behaviors that we can code in from our intelligence team as we're seeing some of these anomalies come up in usage. And all of this means that we can use these tools, these anomaly detection, machine learning, with our AI tool to start to pull and ask questions from the data lake. Is just kind of proactively running these queries for you and then letting the human consume that. So we have Amazon Bedrock performing that activity, presenting it proactively to the human versus the human having to spend time thinking about what those questions are, keying in queries, maybe making a typo and having to start again. So let's say there's a detection about a login that looks suspicious. Is it normal that Sarah logs on at 11 p.m.? Well, what answer is, oh, Sarah always logs on between 9 to 5. She's very restricted with her hours. Or, oh, Sarah logs in at all kinds of crazy hours because she's got 3 kids and she's grabbing time for work whenever she has it. So we can answer that with the data that's already been collected, right? So trained on general security topics, access to your data lake, and then we can start to answer those questions of like, okay, this login looks out of the norm, or we had this login and Sarah created a scheduled task which she's never done before. All of that gets presented to the analyst as they're doing that alert review. And so we can say those analysts are upskilled to become more senior. And to borrow some language from my colleague, those senior analysts can be upskilled to being security superheroes. Now, I am going to talk through an example specifically with our data loss prevention tool, because I got to keep this focused for the time that I have. But we are using AI across our tool suite. So our Trellix Helix tool is the tool that can ingest data from not only the Trellix products, those events and alerts. We can ingest from those additional open data sources and apply our intel and anomaly detection. We have Trellix Wise Assist also in our endpoint detection response, our network detection response platforms. We have an automated response function within Helix Connect. So all of what I'm talking to you as I focus on a data security example, we can think of getting that same type of analyst assist in our other tools. I just need to stay focused for today. So how does these AI assists help you? We talked through that example of having a single event, but let's imagine on a daily basis, right? We have billions of events that we're collecting in our environment, login events, process executions, services running, services getting shut down. We apply our analytics and rules and intel, and that shrinks it down to, let's say, 1,000 anomalies that we can report. But I don't want to come in and start my day looking at 1,000 alerts. That's too many to be useful. So with Trellix Wise, we can use that kind of automated alert contextualization to take those 1,000 alerts and whittle it down to the 10 that are really probably the ones that we want to look at. And the others we can say, okay, this really was just an anomaly. We have no other data. So my recommendation is it was blocked. You're good to close this out. So when we're looking at the benefits of AI, we really need to talk about what it gives the human. We're always talking about the human element in this, right? So we think about the amount of time saved in terms of ingesting and parsing, the amount of time that is saved building context or running these queries to give us some understanding of what's really happened in our environment, not only for a single detection, but across the endpoint that it was detected on, across the network resource it was used. We can turn those automatically into incidents and build context and bring in answers to analytical questions proactively without the analysts having to do this, and even turn this into automated response, like containing systems if we have critical alerts and those systems have been marked as approved for containment. No one's really gonna whine too much if my system gets locked out, but we definitely wouldn't want to lock out, the CEO's email access. So all of these automated tasks that AI helps with, have granular savings, which compound so massively to numbers of hours per day, per week, per month. And we see one example here. And maybe it seems like an exaggeration, but when we think about just the repeated actions that we have to do as analysts, saving that time from an analyst, running those, Splunk queries versus the queries run, they have the data. And all I need to do is use my brain, which is what I'm paid for and trained for, to make assessments and recommendations. That is really upskilling and supercharging your team. So I said I was going to talk through a use case here with our data security, and I know I'm coming close on my time, so I'll just do this really quickly. Let's think of an example with our data prevention. You can get very granular on your rules to protect your valuable HIPAA data, your PII. So let's imagine we have a web-based rule web protection rule that is going to block any HIPAA or PII data put into a website, right? So I'm not going to be able to put it into ChatGPT by mistake just because I've consumed a bunch of reports, or I'm not going to, maliciously, purposely going to be able to copy it to a GitHub repo, because as soon as I try to block it, as soon as I try to do that copy paste, it gets blocked within the browser. I get an alert, and on the back end, the analyst gets a warning severity, right? So we know as an analyst that rule gets blocked because we understand how our tools work. But then I need to understand, was this a one-off use case, or are there other things happening at the time that make me need to consider this more deeply, and it's an incident, right? Did Sarah just paste into the wrong console, or is something more nefarious happening? So we have a kind of high-level diagram of our tool set here. EPO is our management console that operates all on the back end. This is where we create that data protection rule. So as I said, we have a rule that's going to block this data from exfiltrating. So let's say the user attempts to upload that data, it gets blocked, they get a notification. That's acting as expected. That's fantastic. Our data is protected. But again, as an analyst, when I see that this event has happened, I need to know what has happened. So that event gets sent over to EPO and the analyst can consume it. Now, in our environment, let's imagine we have some other tools. These could be, again, Trellix tools or third-party tools. I will talk through the Trellix tool set because that's what I'm familiar with. So let's say we have our network IVX sensor deployed. So it sees also at the same time around this event happened that a malware was downloaded. We launched it dynamically in our IVX virtual engine and discovered the capabilities of the malware and that it was malicious. So now we have a DLPE event for that data protection, as well as a malware download that was timed very suspiciously. Now, the analyst would have to go and look at the endpoint, find out the IP, maybe go look in network logs to try to do all this correlation. But with WISE in the mix, WISE is able to pull from that data lake and automatically correlate that, hey, we had this data loss prevention event happen, and we had a major network severity event. And so those two correlate enough for me to understand that I really need to look at this a little bit deeper, me being the analyst. So this is what the analyst would see in this scenario. We get that data loss prevention rule. We get a case automatically created in EPO. We have, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit here. So the alert case gets updated with WISE, so we know where this information came from, that we had this PII uploaded to a website, but we've turned it into an incident because of what we were able to track with WISE. WISE is able to change that severity to not a warning, but to resolve immediately, as well as bring in data from the data lake, a non-technical summary, steps to remediate, and potential recommendations for your analysts to follow. And this is all on the automated, right? So WISE has annotated the case and given us some information on how to act based on this correlation of events. And then if this proactive collection of information is a great start, but the analyst wants to do a little bit more, then it can chat with WISE to get some additional context, maybe ask a question about something that was seen in there, maybe about the IP that was seen, say, oh, were there any other alerts that were not considered? And so we have some potential next steps. So all of this is really meant to drive supporting the analyst. A lot of folks ask us about kind of how our AI works. So I think I mentioned this before, but I want to reiterate, we do not use customer data to train our models. We have done this pre-trained. We've done this on general security knowledge. And then the decisions that Wise is making are based on the technical information at hand in your data lake. And so we're making sure that these AI decisions are grounded and not hallucinations. Um, I did talk a little bit about where we see Wise across our platform. I will take a minute to toot our own horn on some of the awards that we've won, again, across the different areas where we can protect your environment and more endpoint, network, data, email, and through Helix Connect in the cloud. And then again, I do want to call out our Editor Choice Award in 2024 for the Global InfoSec Awards, specifically with our AI solution, Trellix Wise. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to chat with you all today and tell you a little bit about what Trellix is doing. If you have any questions, I'm happy to share my email out and follow up with any of you to tell you a little bit more about some of the specifics. So thank you.